Information architecture. Who's heard of this? Yes? Cool. So information architecture is when you basically look at a product and you try to map out what is the structure of my data. So basic example might be Facebook. You have your profile, you have your newsfeed, and then you have all these sub-pages. It could be like your about page, your photos, your videos. And you write all that down, and you start to realize, well, if I have this content, what's maybe the most logical way for my user to access that? And so once you start to do this, you can start to, well, number one, realize like, holy shit, I have a lot of work to do. Number two, this maybe doesn't make sense from an engineering standpoint. And so this is really important to prepare yourself for the technical hurdles you might face down the road. And then we actually go into the prototyping. So this is where like the fun and the beautiful design starts to happen. And these are a couple programs that I would bet almost every up-to-date, agency is probably using. The diamond is Sketch, middle is Envision, and the one on the right is Crack. So this suite of products is pretty much all you need to kind of get yourself going. So Sketch, who's heard of that? Cool. So who uses Illustrator or Photoshop? Awesome. So it's basically the same thing. The difference is when you create an interface, you're not going to be creating as much artwork as you would in Photoshop and Illustrator. So it's like a lightweight version of Illustrator, to think about it that way. And then it's optimized to where you can create an interface and it would export at the resolutions you would need for a device. So it's a lot faster, it's easier to use, and it's a lot more limited because if you're an Illustrator or Photoshop, you have a bajillion options to create different types of shading. Maybe you want to create three-dimensional shapes. This is just limited to like UI components. So who's heard of a UI kit? Awesome. A UI kit is, so I'll take an example here. So when you look at your phone and you see different types of buttons or maybe like browser windows or navigation, all those components are part of a UI kit. So if you create an application, let's say for a website, you might need to have 4 different kinds of buttons, different types of navigation. Maybe you need different windows. So before starting the project, you might create those assets. So when you get to the wireframing, it's as easy as just like, I want to move this button over here, and I want to have like a video here, and it's so much faster. So that's kind of how design is done today. And you guys can go on the internet right now and download dozens of free UI kits and just start creating applications without having the restriction of building each one every time. So it's good to know. Envision is where you take your screens and you can upload them onto a site and collaborate with your users and collect feedback. So someone can go on there as easy as it would be like if you're at Google Drive and you want to put together on a document, you can comment on a paragraph like, change this, the grammar's wrong, or like, we should put this content here. And so this allows you just to be a little bit more collaborative with the people you're working with. And by the way, the last 2 programs, I can teach you guys to probably use those in like a week. So the learning curve is very low. And that's the great thing about this field is like almost anyone can get into it. So after that, you go into visual design. So we figured out the kind of experience you want. What value are we offering to our users? What is that flow going to be like through the application? What buttons are they clicking? And then also, how should it look? Am I going to resonate with a particular demographic or brand or identity? And that's the fun part. And then, if you have time and money, the money part's big, you can go into interaction design. So interaction design brings your designs to life. It makes them fun. Who's heard of the lawsuit with the swipe for the iPhone? Or lawsuits between Samsung and Apple? So they file out because Apple will create something like, well, this is how a button works, we're going to patent that. And they're like, well, that's how all buttons work, you can't do that. And so the interaction design space is funny because things that we would just take for kind of like a subconscious behavior, those are all interaction designs. And a lot of companies try to patent that. But that'd be like if someone tried to patent like the internet. So it's a funny space. All right. Who's done animation before? Gosh. You've done a little bit of everything, you two. So we're going to go on to that next. How do you bring these designs to life? Because they're static. They don't really move anywhere. We have cool looking visuals, but how are people going to see that things move from screen to screen? That's when Principle comes in. So Principle is essentially kind of like After Effects. And then who's heard of After Effects? Awesome. After Effects is part of the Adobe suite where you can create animations. So for example, who's seen Iron Man or Tron? So you know the cool like heads-up displays where they're showing graphics moving around the screen? You could create that in After Effects. And the reason why I'm saying that is Principle is similar to where you can say, when I have this graph and I want to click on the View Channels button, I want it to go to the next screen. And it's as easy as like click, click, and then create whatever trigger that's going to happen. So it's also super easy, and it brings your designs to life. And I should also mention Principle, Sketch, Envision, and Craft all integrate together. So you don't have to worry about like, if I use this program, I have to do something kind of weird so it plays nice with this program. They're all like, kind of friends, I guess. And then development begins. So you've done all this design work, figured out how the application works, you know that your users want it, and you validated there's a business here. This actually is going to stay alive. It's not just like some cool concept. So you go into the software component. Anyone here code? All right, sweet, well that's good. So, not saying that you have to. There's this like weird debate in the industry that's like designers should code, designers should not code. Kind of indifferent, do what you want. If you want to, go for it. If you don't worry about it. Have you guys heard of the term like unicorn designer? So that's like someone who can design and program. And so that's kind of where that trend is coming from. It's like everyone's looking for unicorns, companies. But usually if you can do both, you're usually you're not going to be like great at one. You're just like kind of okay at both. So I don't know if you guys ever think about that, but in the industry that's a big conversation is like, can you program and design? What are you good at? Yes?
So do you find yourself limited in designing if you don't know how to code though?
So it depends. It depends on, well, number one, what you're trying to do. I mean, if you work at like an awesome place and they just have like amazing talent and you're just like, you know what, design is a thing, I don't really care to do any programming, maybe they'll have something like, that's okay, like so-and-so is a programmer, he can help guide you along the way. But I think in every industry, you should have an awareness of how it works. So, like, don't create some incredible idea and then they're like, dude, shit, that's not gonna work. It's just not gonna work. So, that's probably my best piece of recommendation, but I wouldn't say that you have to like perfect it. But you should also be aware of like what's happening in the industry. So there's like, just like you guys, if there's a new type of product coming out and they're using some crazy new type of manufacturing, like, be aware of that, because who knows, like that could disrupt the way you do your business. So does that make sense? Cool. All right. Who knows this person? Another big prize. No.
That's my mom.
What's that?
That's my mom.
That's your mom? Really? Wow. You were famous. So, this is just a fun fact, has nothing to do with design, but this is Ada Lovelace. She's the first programmer ever. So, for all you ladies out there, that's where it started. It's kind of cool. Back in 1843. People won't talk about her, but I will. So, a few other things to remember, like little words of wisdom. You don't have to take these, but if you do, awesome. Just be curious. Like, be relentless in your curiosity. I have this worry that as time goes by and technology proliferates, people start to lose their sense of curiosity. They're like doing this all the time. It's 8 o'clock. Don't be that person. So be curious, please, like the Wright brothers. I don't know if you guys knew. I don't believe they had college educations. They had a very limited budget, and they were bike mechanics. Like, what? It's crazy. Never stop learning. So, I mean, you guys are in school. Take advantage of that. You have amazing access to resources. Like, just freaking take advantage of all that, soak it up. Because now that I'm out of school, I miss that, and I really wish I had it. So, I mean, you have so many people in the room. I'm sure you have like minds and you want to do big things. Like, do those big things. Like, you can. You can just fail fast. And don't wait. Like, this is the time. So, I think you guys are aware of that. But if you're wondering, like, should I do this? Like, just go for it. You know. And if it's something crazy, like travel the world for a year, just go for it. Maybe you need that. You'll learn a lot. Oh, and this is something that I'm really passionate about as designers, as I talked about earlier. You have the power to like change the world in a good way. You're makers and creators and like the Imagineers. Like, just be aware of that. There's not a lot of other disciplines that have that sort of power. And if you think about the other programs on campus, there's not many fields where you can go out with what you do as an independent and you can radically disrupt. So just be aware of that. The potential you guys have is incredible. And then, you know, always a good sentiment, stay hungry and humble. Does anyone recognize any of these people? They're pretty young.
Steve Jobs.
Okay, that's good. Anyone else? Just let it fire. There's no wrong answers here. Bill Gates?
Oh, I was
No.
going to say that.
Stephen Hawking?
No. Anybody else?
Someone in the middle, is that Wozniak?
No.
Elon
But he's
Musk?
same
Elon Musk?
same group of people though.
A baby.
Elon Musk?
Joy?
Wow, yeah, you're right.
Joey?
Yes.
Joy? Girl?
No.
No.
Thanks for scaring us.
I was gonna say that, but I was like, I'll let him just like figure it out. We'll get there. So think about that. Like, isn't that
As
crazy?
you see it,
These people just
Elon Musk.
they tore it up. I mean, they're just doing amazing shit, and you can too. So just know that and do that. And I end on this because I think user experience, unlike a lot of other fields, and I think other types of design can do this too, but with almost no money, you can create something, put it on the internet, and have unlimited reach to your customer base, assuming it's something useful. And you're not limited. And so I've worked in hardware and I've built products that have taken years, but then on the side I can spin up something in a month. I mean, that's pretty freaking awesome. So there's not a lot of opportunities, and not to say money is the most important thing, but the cost benefit ratio is amazing. So just be aware of that. Thanks. So, any questions, comments, concerns, confessions? If you have one.
Excuse me, Father.
Yeah. Did this help at all? I had really no idea what the audience was going to be, so I didn't know how deep or shallow to go. Yeah.
Can you go a little bit more into the software that you use? Because I know that some of the people in our class have tried to do interfaces.
Yeah.
And it varies a lot what program they use, just because it seems like such a new industry, and the programs, the industry standards just seem to be moving a lot. And I don't know if that's what's your experience with that.
Great question. So it all